Minutes past 8 the time now. Many schools across England and Wales are closed today as teachers join a strike of public sector workers, which is expected to be the biggest since the coalition came to power.
Teachers have walked out, citing pressures of a heavy workload and having to work until the age of 68.
Speaking earlier on BBC Breakfast, Government Minister Francis Maude criticised the National Union of Teachers for the way it had conducted its ballot.
The parents of children who may not be able to go to work today if the school their child is going to is closed, they don't get consulted on this. And so it's reasonable to say that in those circumstances, a union should be able to show that a large proportion of their members have actually voted and supported the strike. That's not unreasonable.
Well, let's talk about that now with Kevin Courtney, the Deputy General Secretary of the NUT. You heard Francis Maude's comments just a moment ago. Should we deal with some of those issues? They're challenging, really. Your members' decision to strike today on the basis that they're saying your mandate is almost 2 years old.
Well, that's true, and we've got another mandate 3 years old on the pensions dispute. We've fulfilled all the legal terms that you require to call industrial action. Obviously, we need to know that our members support us, and we conduct many surveys, random surveys, surveys of our reps to ensure that is the case. So we've got support of our members. I mean, I think the key thing for parents to understand about why we're taking this action is we think there's a huge teacher shortage coming. There's been a step up in teacher workload between 10 and 20% since Michael Gove was elected, and that workload to 60 hours a week, and that workload isn't preparing exciting lessons for children. It's bureaucracy, it's form filling, it's dragging teachers down, it's taking them away from preparing exciting lessons, and it's leading to many thousands of good teachers leaving the profession. That's why we're taking action today.
Can I ask you about what you understand of turnout today in terms of the impact it's having? Do you know how many schools are closed as a result of the action, or how many of your members are not at work?
We're conducting surveys to find out how many schools are closed. We've been doing some work on that in the run-up to the strike. We think we've got good support from our members, but we'll look at the figures as the day progresses.
Because you don't yet know which staff will be turning up for lessons, is that right?
You can't know across the piece right at this moment, but we think that we've got good support from our members for this industrial action. We're taking action today alongside other unions because we really want the government to listen. We've obviously got different disputes, and the teachers' dispute is focused on workload. It's also focused on the idea that with this current level of workload, teachers just will not be able to work till 68. But we're saying to parents, we do regret this strike action today. We don't want to disrupt their working lives or their children's education. This strike could have been avoided if Michael Gove had sat down and seriously engaged with us. But we think that if we don't take action, if we don't get the government to change course, then there will be a significant teacher shortage, which will be much more damaging to children's education than this action we're taking today.
And now you know that the government's response thus far, and indeed reiterated again today, is that there is no more money, there will be no more money, and their position is absolute. Now, given that scenario, how does the future look in terms of strikes? Because you're talking about parents and you're talking about children who are going to schools. Will you continue with strike action if you don't get the response you want today? And clearly this morning you are not getting a sympathetic response from the government. They are not encouraged by what you're doing to come to the table. So will there be more strikes?
Well, as I said earlier, the centre of our dispute is around workload. Michael Gove doesn't need to put more money in to solve that part of the dispute. So he could be taking serious steps on that now. But you're right, he doesn't seem to be listening. Last night he said things that were very close, the department said things that were very close to teachers have never had it so good. That is going to upset and anger teachers, that he isn't even engaging with the concerns that they've got. When I'm telling you that teachers are concerned about workload, that good teachers are leaving, these aren't things that are union rhetoric. They're not exaggerating. It's the real state of affairs, that teachers feel that Michael Gove isn't listening, could act, could do things quickly that would ease the situation, but doesn't seem willing to engage in that. If he doesn't engage, then further strike action is a serious possibility.
Now, you'll know that whenever there's strike action, you get a mixed response, and some people getting in touch with us this morning have said, you know, everyone's having a hard time at the moment, and whether you work in the public service, whether you're a teacher or in private enterprise, wherever, striking's not the answer. There is a period of time when you just have to deal with it. Now, you'll know there is sometimes that response. What do you say back to those people?
Well, we want to say we're doing everything we can to settle this dispute without strike action. And we have been conducting a campaign that we call Stand Up for Education. We've had 300 street stalls where tens of thousands of parents have signed a petition. We've had a lobby at Parliament where we saw a quarter of all MPs on one day. We're seeing more over time. We're taking these sorts of steps in order to try and require the government to see sense, Michael Gove to see sense. But there does come a point in any industrial dispute where if your negotiating partner isn't willing to negotiate seriously, then you are driven to strike action, and that's the position we're in today.
Can I just
We've
ask
tried
you?
to avoid it.
Can I just ask you? I mean, I'm not sure how long you've been with the NUT, but you talked about Michael Gove a moment ago. Would you describe the relationship between the teaching unions and the government now as the worst that you can remember?
Well, I've been an NUT activist for about 20 years. I've been in the role that I'm in now for 4 years. So I was elected to my role as Deputy General Secretary just months before Michael Gove was elected to his MPship and then put in as Education Secretary. And I think it's a very poor relationship, not because we don't want to talk. We want to engage. We understand that he's the government minister, that he's got the right to put forward his policies, but we want to engage. We want to talk about those. He isn't willing to seriously engage with us. We've met with him in the last week, and I think that was because of the embarrassment before our last strike that we could say they hadn't met with us at all. Since then, he's met with us for one meeting of 1 hour and 1 minute, one meeting of 45 minutes. That isn't a serious engagement. It's not a serious attempt to resolve these disputes, which will lead to a teacher shortage, and that isn't NUT rhetoric. It's coming towards us. Michael Gove needs to engage in order that that is avoided.
Kevin Courtney, Deputy Secretary of the NUT, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your comments as well. I know lots of you are talking about this on our Facebook page. Coming up, the BBC